Hi, this is Helen Thomas again and the CDFM study group. I am going to be continuing the review of the 2018 study guide for CDFM module 2.2, which is the cost and economic analysis. So I'll pick up on the bottom of page 2219. All right, so we're talking about the acquisition process and the requirements. So we said the JCIS, the Joint Capabilities Integration and Development System, is that process that is used to identify capability gaps. Once we know what our mission is and our strategy, what we want to do, we want to know what capabilities we currently have and then identify any capability gaps that we may have. So JCIS is a system that is used to do that. So within that JCIS system, once we identify that we have, using the .mlpf, doctrine, organization, material, training, and so forth, once we identify that we need a material solution, that is the thing that triggers the acquisition process. So remember, DoD has three support system. It has the PPBE, JCIS, and the acquisition system. All right, so the cost analysis requirements description. Once we identify the capability gap and we have that initial capability, what does that system need to be able to do? Then we also have a requirement for a CARD, cost analysis requirements description, for acquisition category 1 and 1A. So remember, acquisition category 1 are your DoD level programs. And 1 is just your general, your aircrafts, your vehicles. And then 1A, the A meaning automation. So it's DoD level automation. So any acquisition category 1 or category 1A programs requires the program manager to create the CARD. The CARD is created or prepared by the program manager, and the program manager works for a program executive officer. The PEO is the one that will approve it. What else it says here? So the director of CAPE, that's the same guy in charge of programming phase of PEEP, the same guy in charge of updating the future year defense program, same guy in charge of the cost analysis for the DoD. So the DCAPE and the organization preparing the CARD or the cost estimate must receive a draft CARD within 180 days from that overarching integrated product team. You know, when you have those working groups, so before they have that first overarching integrated product team, the OIPT, 180 days from that planned group is when that draft CARD is required. And then 45 days prior to the planned team, then you're required to have the final CARD. So those are the two things to point out there. The DCAPE will provide CARD development guidance tailored to specific review. All CARDs, no matter how tailored, will provide a description that includes a summary of the acquisition. So it's basically explaining how that whole acquisition process from cradle to grave is to occur. Once we identify the initial capabilities document, the ICD, now that CARD for DoD level program is going to kind of walk through that timeline in what is required from the beginning inception of that idea to actually having an end product is dictated in that CARD. All right, so life cycle cost. So there are many things that, and you're definitely going to have to do practical exercises or answer question where it asks you how to calculate, or it'll ask you to calculate these different types of life cycle costs. Life cycle, cradle to grave. So there's a cost associated with each part of that process. So looking at the diagram on the next page where it says life cycle cost comparison, so all of these items make up life cycle costs: your development, your flyaway costs, weapon system costs, procurement costs, program acquisition costs, which is your military construction is included, operations and support, and your disposal. All right, so within that chart, it'll tell you your development cost is all your RDT&E. So what will happen is you will receive a list of various costs: RDT&E, procurement, O&M, military construction, and so forth. And it'll say calculate the development cost. Well, you will have to know that development cost is my research. What does it cost to develop that material? So development cost is RDT&E. The second cost is the flyaway. So I need to develop it. Now I need it to take off. I need to fly away. Your flyaway cost is your procurement of your prime items, your prime equipment. The main equipment is your flyaway cost. The weapon system cost is your flyaway cost plus your procurement of the support items. So let's start again. Development cost is anything that has RDT&E. So from the list that you will be given, anything that has RDT&E funding on it, research, development, technology, and equipment, you add all those RDT&E, and that will be your developmental cost. Your flyaway of the main prime item, your prime equipment, is procurement of the prime equipment. So you may have a list that have procurement of prime, procurement of support items, procurement of spares. You need to know that the flyaway is only procurement of the prime item or prime equipment. Weapon system cost is flyaway cost, procurement of the prime item, and procurement of that support items. Together make up your weapon system cost. So I'm trying to explain how you read that chart. And if you look at number 4, it says procurement costs, or everything within that box. So everything that has procurement, used procurement dollars makes up your procurement cost. So if I say calculate the procurement cost, it'll be flyaway cost, which is procurement of your prime item. Weapon system cost is flyaway plus procurement of support items, and procurement cost is also you add procurement of the initial spares. Then the program acquisition cost is your RDT&E, procurement, and military construction dollars added together will give you your program acquisition cost. And later on, when we look at program acquisition unit cost, now I'm asking you how much for one unit, then you take the number of units and you're going to divide it into that total. But we're going to look at that in about 2 minutes. So on the life cycle cost, you also add operations and support. So that includes your O&M dollars and your MILPERS, military personnel pay, is included in your operations and support, and also your disposal. So in your disposal of that item, once they reach the end of their life cycle, that cost, usually you use O&M dollars to do the disposal also. So you're going to also need to know what type of funding you use in each one of these. And all of those things together, developmental, flyaway, weapon system, procurement, program acquisition cost, and the life cycle cost composition, all together, those costs is your O&M, operations and support, and your disposal make up that life cycle cost comparison. All right, so I'm not going to continuously go over that to confuse you, but make sure you know on page 20, because I think at the end you have a practical exercise to explain to you what's going to be required of you if you see this type of question on your examination. All right, so as required at the bottom, average unit cost. So you're going to have also 2 things you're going to have to calculate, and they have examples on the next page. Average procurement unit cost versus program acquisition unit cost. So we just talked about program acquisition cost. So first of all, you need to ask yourself, what makes up the program acquisition cost? We just talked about it in that diagram. That's your RDT&E, MilCon, and all your procurement costs add together is your program acquisition cost. However, this particular average unit cost is asking you for the program acquisition unit cost. So it's asking you, now you know the cost of creating all these items. I need to know how much will it cost to produce one item, one unit. And so if you look on the next page, you see two examples. The first example is how you calculate the program acquisition unit cost. So you see you're given RDT&E, 1 unit for $5,000, procurement, 199 units for $20,000, MilCon for a cost of $1,000, and your total, you have 200 units at a cost of $26,000. Now remember, just like in the financial management real world, you get more data than required to answer the question. So just because this example gives you exactly the amount of numbers that you need to do the calculation, don't expect that on your certification exam. You will have O&M, you will have MilPers included, and then you have to pick out, all right, for program acquisition costs, I need to pull out RDT&E, MilCon, and procurement dollars. Add them all up, add up all the units, so I have number of units and the total cost of those units. To get the average unit cost or the program acquisition unit cost, I need to take the total cost divided by the number of units. So in this example, it takes the 26,000 divided by 200. So the PAUC, program acquisition unit cost, is $130,000 per unit. Am I saying that right? Yeah. So that's, all right, so that's the total unit cost, $130,000. All right, and the next one is for average procurement cost. So an average procurement, $130. All right, average procurement cost now includes only, so that's an easier one. Anything that says the word procurement dollars, you add all your procurement and you do the same thing. So only the procurement units divided into the procurement dollars. So in this one, they only gave you the numbers for 199 procurement units and the dollar amount for 20,000. So the average procurement unit cost is 20,000 divided by 199, which equals 100.5 thousand. All right, so when we're talking about these items, units, the units must be fully configured end items, meaning it's a usable end item. And so they give the example or an explanation. The final combination of end products, components, and parts, which is fully readable, ready for use. I need to say ready for use. All right. So you have all the definitions again of the life cycle cost terms on the next page. And then, so development, flyaway, weapon system, procurement cost, program acquisition cost, operating and support costs, and life cycle costs, which is all of them together. So remember, in operating and support, you also have the disposal from cradle to grave. There's a cost associated with each. All right, so our next topic leads into the life cycle estimate. So when we're getting ready to buy something, we have to do cost analysis. Well, we need to know what type of estimates we're going to use to be able to come up with the best price of how much it'll cost to make that development. So required life cycle cost estimate for acquisition. There are three types. You have the program office estimate, component cost estimate, independent cost estimate. So when you look at this, you look at the level. For acquisition 1 programs, if it's an Army level, the program manager does the program office estimate. They do their own estimate at the program level. Then when it gets up to the Army level, so this is for DoD programs. So when it gets up to Army, then the Army does component. So component means the services. So component does their cost estimate. Then when it gets up at the DoD level for the Acquisition 1 Delta programs, then you do an independent cost estimate. So what you need to know from here of the different cost estimating programs is what level are we at? So the program office estimate is done by the program manager. The program PM is responsible for the program office estimate. The second cost estimate is normally done by the service or the component. That's like I said, Army, Navy, Air Force, they do the component cost estimate. So whoever their cost analysis person is. For example, the Army have ASA, FMNC. That's their Within the ASA FMMC, they have their cost person who will do the component cost estimate. And the third cost estimate of an Acquisition Category 1 Delta program will be done by, guess who's the cost person at the DoD level? The DCAPE, Director of Cost Assessment and Program Evaluation. So the DCAPE does that cost analysis, and it's called an Independent Cost Estimate, the ICE. So those are the three cost estimates. All right, a lot of us deal with WBS, work breakdown structure. So it's just explaining what that is. The WBS is a product-oriented family tree. You know, in the WBS is if you want to do a cost analysis, you want to know where your money is being spent, you create WBSs for specific purposes so that you may track if they say, well, how much was spent on TDY? How much was spent on actual labor? Well, if you have a WBS associated with each one of those functions, then all you have to do is use a WBS number, and then you'll be able to get your total. So the WBS assists in facilitating cost estimate. You're doing a new program, and I have prior history in the WBS. That's why they're like, how much does it cost the Army to train a soldier? You know, when they ask us questions like that, we have to be able to do cost estimates based on prior data. So the WBS helps us to do that. And it also provides a common thread for that. You'll hear the term earned value management. And what that is when you have contractors, vendors, and the government is so that we make sure that we keep each other on track using the WBS. If the contractor says it's going to cost XYZ to do this job, I give you a WBS to do each part of it, then you cannot exceed without me knowing, because you're only going to be able to spend what is there. All right, so cost analysis used in the acquisition process. Again, we're talking about DoD level programs. Acquisition Category 1 Delta, DoD level, or 1 AM. And that's, again, dealing with your automation at the DoD level. Cost estimating methods. So there's different methods that we use to do a cost estimate. The analogy approach is where we have one similar item already in our inventory, and we can use what it costs to develop that item, what it costs to process, labor, and so forth. We can use the cost of that. So analogy is looking at historical data of one similar item. The second cost estimating method we can use is parametric, and metric sounds like statistics, right? So metric is we have several existing systems. So it acts like several existing systems that we already have in our inventory. And so we will take the cost of those similar systems already in the inventory, and then we will come up with a cost to develop that new item. And so this is often called the statistical approach or the top-down method. So parametric, statistical approach, top-down, looking at the cost of several similar systems, like the one I want to create. Engineering, on the other hand, you think of an engineer, they're hard workers, they're real technical. So those is often referred to as the bottom-up method. And it's also called industrial engineering approach. So if you hear engineering, it's real tedious, technical, bottom up, and an individual cost estimate must be accomplished for each work breakdown structure element. So we have no existing system. So when you do the engineering approach, what you're saying is we have no existing system in our inventory. So we are starting from scratch. So the engineers have to look at each intricate part, detailed process to come up with the cost to do that because we have no system. So analogy was we have one similar system, the existing system. Parametric, we have similar systems, more than one, in our inventory to come up with the cost. It's top down. It acts like several other systems. It's statistical method. Engineering approach means we have no similar system in our inventory. We're starting from scratch, and it is the bottom-up approach. So, or you can use actual cost. Maybe we already have these type of systems in our inventory, and so we use what it actually costs to do that. So the actual cost approach. Now, in the cost estimating method, sometimes you have subject matter experts that you can use their opinion. If you add it into, let's say you're using the engineering method, you may want to also add some expert opinion for individuals who have subjective judgment on the cost. What you typically have to do here is use the Delphi technique. And that simply means you take the ideas from the various experts. If you have 3 experts, I take what all 3 of them says and I look for similarities. So the Delphi technique is looking for similarities in what all of them said, and then I use that as a basis to help me come up with the cost. So those are the different cost estimating methods that we can use to come up with, like the program manager used to come up with a baseline when they say, how much does it cost to do this job or to create this item? So that's how it's done. All right, so let's switch gears now. We're going to look at the learning curve theory. And what the essence is the learning curve theory allows the government program office to estimate the cost for the contractor to manufacture multiple quantities. The idea behind the learning curve theory says the longer I do a job, I should get better. I should be producing more items, but taking less time to do it. That's the theory. I don't know how true it is, because sometimes it makes you wonder. So the more I do the same job and produce items, it should take me less time to double my productivity. The learning curve may only be applied to recurring costs, not a one-time cost, not a sunk cost. It's a recurring cost that we have. And so if it's something we do all the time, the idea is I should be able to produce more over the years. As the job doubles, I should be able to produce more with less labor hours. So some examples are given on the following page of learning curve application. Definitely you'll see the learning curve 99% of the time on your evaluation, on your exams. So for example, tactical vehicle follows an 85 to 92% learning curve. This means that every time the production quantity of a particular tactile missile doubles, production doubles, unit labor hour is reduced. Less time to do it. So I'm producing more, less time to do it. So it's reduced to 85 to 92% of the previous unit labor cost. So if it took me 8 hours, then the next time it should be 85 to 92% quicker the next time. And so make sure you look over the examples and how to calculate. If you go to type 2 at the bottom, so there's one where they will give you the percentage and you have to calculate the labor hours. So that's type 1. And let me look at it. So unit 2, it took 300 hours times 90%, will give you 272 hours. So you always double. So if you got unit 2, the next will be unit 4. So it takes 270 hours for unit 4. So you start with unit 4, 270 hours times the same 90%. That means it's going to take 243 hours to create unit 8. So it's 2, 4, 6, actually 2, 4, 8, 16, 32, and so forth. So you're doubling. So you're going to have to also do type 2. Type 2 is where they give you the unit and the hours, and then you have to calculate the learning curve. Now, how do you do that? The best way is if they say they give you 4 choices and it says 80%, 90%, let's say 60, 70, 80, 90% learning curve. What I do for a shortcut is I'll take, let's say 80%. 80% times the 250 hours, I'll get a percentage. Or 80% times the 2, I'll get a percentage. And then I will look and see if you get the same number that they give in hours. So let me rephrase. Looking at type 1, where they give you the unit number, so they give you the hours and the percentage, and then you calculate the number of hours to the next unit. Here they give you unit 2 is 250 hours. So it should be 250 hours times, let's say 80% should give me 237.5. So if it doesn't give me 237.5, I know the learning curve cannot be 80%. So I will try 70%. 70% times 250 should give me 237.5. If it doesn't give me 237.5, then I know. So that's the shorthand way of doing that calculation. And remember, on the exam, no calculators. You can't use the calculators on the exam. So that's why I'm saying it's better to do it that way, like process of elimination, the 250 times 80. So I know it's not 80. So it's 250 times 0.9. And then you have to do 2.0.7 for 70% until you get 250, 237.5, 225.6, and so forth. So just make sure you review those sections because you're going to be required to do that. All right, so I'm going to stop here for this portion, and then I will pick up in the next video because I don't like to prolong the videos too long, and this one's almost 30 minutes already. And the next one we're going to pick up, we're going to look at the different types of contract and the earned value management associated with executing these types of contract. All right, I'll see you guys again next time. Be sure to subscribe so that you can get the updates as I update my videos. Again, this is Helen Thomas and the CDFM Study Group.